Today, I'm going to walk you through installing and setting up Soulstruct for Blender. Soulstruct is an add-on that allows you to import Fromsoft files such as models, textures, and animations into Blender. However, there are a few limitations, but we'll get to that in a few. Before we get started, you'll need to have unpacked your game files using the UXM Selective Unpacker. I'll have the link in the description below. You can also check out my other video on exporting Elden Ring models right here. First thing we need to do is download the add-on from the Soulstruct Blender GitHub. Once you're there, I'd encourage you to read through the documentation at some point. However, what we're going to be concerned with right now is the game support section. So as you can see by this chart, not all games are supported equally. Since I'm going to be using Elden Ring, the only thing that it really supports is the flavor files. So that's going to be the models and textures. There is no collision support, partial nav mesh, and partial animation. We will be touching on animation though, and no MSB. So to download the add-on, what we want to do is scroll back up to the top, and on the right-hand side under Releases, we're going to click on Soulstruct for Blender version 2.23, and then once we get to this page, we're going to download IO Soulstruct version 2.23. Okay, so now we're in Blender. So what we want to do is just drag over our zip file that we downloaded and drop it into the window, and then we're going to click OK. Gonna take a second. There we go, it's installed. And then we want to open up our tool panel, and now we have our flavor tab, animation tab, collision tab, nav mesh tab, nav graph tab, and MSB. We're only going to be concerned about the flavor and the animation. In the game, we want to make sure that we have our game selected. In my case, it's Elden Ring. And then your game root. Your game root is where your game's installed. So mine's D, Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, Elden Ring game. You want to go ahead and create a folder for your projects. I have mine in my documents in ERMod, and then import export settings. The only thing that we need to do here is just uncheck prefer import from project. We're not going to worry about these two options, and material and textures. For some reason this defaulted to the shader folder. We don't really need this at the moment. This is for if you create custom matte files, which we're not going to worry about right now. We do want to have our image cache directory set up. So mine is actually set in my project folder as just cache. For the image, we just want to leave it as TGA, and then make sure you got read cached images and write cached images selected. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and import our character. So we're going to click on the flavor import drop down, and then we got import matte pieces, import character, import asset, and import equipment. We're going to do import character, and for this one I'm going to import Mohg. So that is going to be 4800, and this is our character bind file. So we're going to go ahead and double click that. It's going to take it a minute, and now we have Mohg imported. Let's check to make sure that his texture's imported correctly. So we're just going to go and do viewport shading. So now we have a fully textured Mohg. Let's go ahead and check our UVs. All right, as you can see, we got all of our UVs here. And then if we drop down, we have our images for the model itself, and that's our feathers. And all these should have their UVs mapped correctly. And that looks like that's our trident right here. So we don't really need to do anything here. So next thing I want to do is we want to check our shading. And as you can see, what this plugin has done is it actually has created, to the best of its abilities, the actual node tree for the textures. So you can go through this, and you can see this is there's our normal, and we're not going to be messing with any of this. So let's go back to layout. We're going to go ahead and click on animation, and then we're going to go to import export, and then we're going to import character animation. Unfortunately, this is an error that constantly keeps coming up. So what we want to do to get around this, we're going to go ahead and import any animation, and then we want to go ahead and search for Mohg. So it's going to be 4800. All right, so we got 3 different files here. So we just want the first one here, the AniBND. These are all of our animations. We're going to pick the first one, which should just be the idle pose. Click OK, and there we have it. We have an animated Mohg, just standing there doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and import another animation. Go back to 4800. Now, unfortunately, I do not know what all of these animations are, so I'm just going to pick one at random. All right, so now we have a full animation going here. We actually have something interesting to look at. With Mohg selected, if we go to select animation, now we have both of these animations that we've already chose listed. So we can go ahead and select that, and it'll bring us back to our idle pose. Go back in here and then select that one, and that gives us that. Last thing I want to go over is some problems that you may encounter. I have had various issues with models not loading correctly, missing textures, and animation issues. Also, exporting models and textures doesn't seem to work currently. For Elden Ring, I don't think this is a very good solution for modding. However, I do think it may be useful for retexturing, 3D printing projects, maybe still renders, and some animated renders. If you enjoyed my overview of Soulstruct, please like and subscribe. I will be doing a more in-depth video on Soulstruct in the future. Later.